Hi everyone, good day. Today we're going to be going into HTML. This is in our course outline. Today we'll be looking at HTML basics. But first of all, you might be wondering, what is HTML? Well, at the end of our previous class, I had asked that I would go ahead and read about it or watch videos to know what HTML is. So I'm hoping that most of us had done that already. But just to give a brief summary or a brief introduction into HTML, we have to first recap what we talked about the last time. We talked about how the web works, what goes on behind the scenes when we try to visit a web page. Because as web developers, we have to understand how the web works in order to be able to make efficient and proper web applications. So we talked about clients and servers, client requests, server response. We talked about the internet connection, the TCP/IP, that's the transmission control protocol, internet protocol. We talked about the DNS, which is the domain name servers. We talked about HTTP, which is hypertext transfer protocol, right? These are all the things we talked about. We talked about component files. We talked about IP addresses. We talked about data packets. So coming into today's class, we've already understood how the web works. So now we're trying to understand, how do we now build the websites? How do we go ahead to start creating web pages? Previously, I had told us to get our web browsers and our text editors ready, Sublime Text, Visual Studio Code. So today we'll be using those tools that we've talked about. I'll be using them to see how we're going to create web pages. So just like every other form of creating, there's a method to it, there's a syntax to it, there's a way it is done, right? When you want to build roads, there's a way it is done. When you want to sew clothes, you need thread, you need the needle, you need the sewing machine. That's the same way programming or web development has the way it is done. And the tools, the technology rather, that we use to do that is what we call languages. And not just any languages, we have markup languages and we have programming languages. Now let's start with the markup languages. The primary markup language used to create web pages is HTML, meaning hypertext markup language. And what it does is that it gives structure to the web page. HTML gives structure to the web page. Let me just scroll back fast over here. Great. So what is HTML? HTML is a standard markup language for creating web pages. It is not a programming language, it is a markup language used to tell your browser how to structure the pages you visit. It can be as complicated or as simple as a web developer wishes it to be. So basically, what does HTML do? HTML provides structure. That's all HTML does. HTML is like when you think of a human being, every human being has a skeletal system. They have bones, they have skulls. That is what provides structure. If you don't have bones, your body will not be structured in the way it is. And everybody has a different structure depending on how their bones are formed and how their skeletal system is, right? Some people are a bit hunched, some people are straight, some people have bow legs, scale legs. All that structure is determined by the bone, by the skeletal system. So HTML is like the skeletal system of web pages. It provides a structure. It says, okay, this is where heading should be, this is where text should be, this is where paragraph should be, this is where images should be, this is where video should be. that structure where it tells everything where it should be and what it should do. Not what it should do per se, but where it should be and how it should position itself on the web page. Basically, that's what HTML does. It's very basic. But when we're talking about we're building web pages, we don't just use HTML. Just imagine picturing a skeletal system working at you. There's no skin, there's no blood, there's no eyes, it's just bones working at you. You'll be terrified. Of course, that's the same way every website will look terrifying with just HTML. So after using HTML for the structure, we then use CSS, which is cascading style sheets. We use that for the styling, to provide styling, to provide the looks. Okay, this should be this color, this should be this font, this should be bold, this should not be bold, this should be up, this should be down. That's the whole purpose of CSS. It is to style the structure, the structured content, right, which you've structured with HTML, then you go ahead to style it with CSS. Then we also have one more thing, which is the programming language that we use to make it intelligent. So just like, picture this again, a zombie. A zombie is literally like a human that the brain is no longer functioning and it's just one thing it knows how to do, right? So it has a form, the bones and the skeletal system are still intact. It still has skin, hair, eyes, all those things. However deformed they may be, but they are still there. So that is like a web page having just HTML and CSS. It's there quite alright. It's functional. It has the way it looks, but then it is not intelligent. And what I mean by intelligent is that it cannot help you do some certain tasks. So think of a human being that you can talk to, but the human being cannot respond. Or when you try to shake the person cannot shake you back. Or when you try to slap the person cannot dodge, or the person cannot feel the pain. So basically, that's what JavaScript is there for. JavaScript is the programming language and it makes your website intelligent. So it knows, okay, when someone clicks on this button to submit a form, it should send the details to so database. Or when someone scrolls and does a certain action on the page, the image should change to something. Or when someone clicks on a button, for example, it should get the IP address of that user. All those things are primarily done through JavaScript. JavaScript makes your site intelligent. It adds interaction. It makes it interactive and functional, right? So that's the use of JavaScript. It handles, to a large extent, it helps you manipulate the structure of the web page. You can also manipulate the style, and you can also manipulate the information and the data that is on that website, right? So you can see that all these three parts are very, very important. The HTML is there for the structure, the CSS is there for the style, while the JavaScript is there for the interactivity, for the functionality, for the intelligence, right? So let's go further into HTML. So what is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. HTML describes the structure of web pages using markup. HTML elements are the building blocks of HTML pages. HTML elements are represented by tags. HTML tags label pieces of content such as heading, paragraph, table, and so on. Browsers do not display the HTML tag but use them to render the content of the page. So if you can see this little image here, right, it's basically showing us the structure of HTML. So HTML is a language. That's one key thing you need to understand. And every language has a syntax. English language has the way it is written, totally different from the way Arabic is written, which is also another language. Totally different from the way French is written, which is also another language. Totally different from the way Greek is written. So every language has their syntax, how it looks, how it is written, how it is formatted. Now HTML also has this, right? What you're seeing here is basically the structure of what every HTML web page looks like and contains. It has tags, it has content, and it has closing tags, opening tags, content, blah blah blah. That's what it just looks like. But HTML describes the structure of the web page, and every HTML page is made up of what we call HTML elements. These are like the building blocks. So you combine HTML elements to get a full web page. And every HTML element is represented rather by tags. And what do we call tags? We'll get to understand that further down. But every HTML document is made up of HTML elements, and HTML elements are represented by tags. Don't forget, while the tags are labeled with the name of what they represent. Right? I think that's an easier way to understand it. So let's say, for example, you want to put an image into an HTML document. There's a tag for the image, img. Let's say you want to put the heading. There's a tag for the heading, which is h1 or h2, whatever. Let's say you want to put a paragraph into your HTML body. There's a tag for that, which is the label is p. So that's how every HTML tag works. Just like up here, as you can see, there's a body tag that is labeled body. So you know that anything that is here is the body, right? There's title. Anything that is here is the title. Great. So let's go further down. Wait, so we have an example here, first web page. So below here, we can see what it looks like in your text editor, which is what you use to write your code. And here we see what it looks like in the browser. This is what it looks like in the browser up here. And while down here looks like what it is in the text editor. So looking at this code now, what do we see here? We see lines of things. Some are black, some are blue. There's some weird symbols. Okay, so let's break them down one by one, right? So first of all, we have we have this symbol. Sorry, now I'm trying to get just the first symbol. Yeah, just that one. That first one, I don't know if you can see, I try to highlight it without touching the others. Okay, I think that's possible. But if you can see the first symbol we have there, it's the less than sign. Most of you, if you did primary school, you should know that as the less than sign, right? Which is in HTML or in web development, we call it the left angle bracket. Left angle bracket. Now, followed by it, we have the exclamation mark, which everyone knows, and we have doc type HTML. Then we have the greater than sign, which we call the right angle bracket. So what you need to know is that in HTML, everything is made up of tags, right? And how do you write a tag? What do you call a tag? A tag is simply the left angle bracket, the label of that element, and the right angle bracket. That is a tag. So as you can see here, this doc type is a declaration, not a tag, because it has the exclamation mark. But when you look at this HTML here that is blue, it doesn't have any exclamation mark, so that makes it a tag, because all it has is left angle bracket, the HTML label, which is for the HTML element, then the right angle bracket. So that's what every tag looks like. If you check it, almost the same thing everywhere. The head, same thing, title, H1P, it's all the same format. Left angle bracket, label, then the right angle bracket. Now in HTML, whatever is you wrote inside these tags, that the label of the tags don't get shown in your web browser when you open it in your web browser. Let's say, for example, if you see what it looks like in the web browser, my first heading, you don't see the H1 or the P or the body in your web browser or in your when you display your code, right? When you view it in the web browser, you don't see the HTML tags. What you see are the content in between. So as you can see here, we have the H1 tag. But you also notice that there's another H1 tag after the content, which is my first heading. What does that tell you? You might be confused. Okay, so let me explain. In HTML, we have two different types of tags. We have the standalone tags, which are single tags, and we have the double tags, right? That's an easy way for you to understand it. Standalone tags are tags that stand alone, like the name implies. They don't have any opening and closing. While majority of all the other tags, they have what we call opening tags and closing tags. Now, opening tags indicate where your content should start reading. So as soon as my browser reads and gets to this point, it knows that, oh, now whatever comes after this H1 opening tag is a heading. And as soon as it gets to this point where it sees another H1, it knows the heading ends here. And what we have in the middle is the content, right? So what differentiates the opening tag from the closing tag? It is this simple / that is here, just before the H1. So the opening tag and the closing tag, that's the only thing that differentiates them. The closing tag usually has a / before the label. So if you check it for the P here, it's the same thing. Body here, same thing. So basically, once the browser sees the opening tag, it knows, okay, this is where this element is starting. And once it sees the closing tag, it knows this is where this element ends. If you come back here, you'll see the content in between. The content in between is the only thing that the browser displays to the user, right? That's one very, very important thing that you need to know. The tags are not shown in your browser, except you go and check it, but what it displays is the content. So let's go down for some more explanation. The doctype HTML declaration defines the document to be HTML5. So once your browser sees this doctype declaration, which is the first thing we usually put in every HTML document, it tells the browser that this is HTML5, therefore treat it as such, because there have been other versions of HTML, and HTML5 is the latest one, just so you get the latest benefits and functionalities of HTML5. Then the HTML element is the root of an HTML page, meaning that is where everything starts and ends. Then the head element contains meta information about the document. What does meta information mean? It means information about the document, not information inside the document. So let's say you have a web page describing somebody. You can have a meta information telling people that this is the biography of the person you are describing, just so that, for example, when somebody searches on Google for the biography of that person, Google can come and check your website, give them your website to check, because Google cannot read everything in your website before telling people what to check. So they just check your meta information. That's how all the search engines, Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, all of them, that's how they index your site. Your meta information, they check, okay, what are the keywords in this website? What is this website about? So that's the use of the head tag. Whatever is in this head tag is not displayed inside the body of the browser. As you can see here, even the page title is not displayed in the body of the browser. That's in the page you see when you open your browser. What you see here is put in the body tag. So you see, the body element contains the visible page content. So whatever you put in the body element, that is what you can see in your web browser. That is what makes up your web page when you open your web browser. Then the H1 element defines a large heading, the P element defines a paragraph. So that gives us like the basic structure of what every single web page looks like, right? That's in its basic form. That's what it's made up of. HTML elements that are made up of tags that are made up of left angle bracket, right angle bracket, and the label for that element, and the content in between the opening tag and the closing tag. So now we are talking about web browsers, right? The purpose of a web browser, Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari, is to read HTML documents and display them. Browsers do not display the HTML tags like I've explained, but uses them to determine how to display the document. So every browser, the main purpose of every browser is to read and display HTML documents, right? The browsers do not display the tags, rather they use it to know, okay, this is where this starts, this is where this ends, and they use it to determine how to display them. They don't display the tags, they just use it to determine how to display the document. So going down, great, HTML tags, right? HTML tags are element names surrounded by angle brackets. So every single tag in HTML is an element name that is surrounded by angle brackets. So as you keep using more tags, you keep learning more element names, and how you use them is you just put them in angle brackets. That's all. Right? So first we have the left angle bracket, and we have the tag name, then we have the contents in between. Left angle bracket, tag name, content in between. The closing tag is the same thing, just that there's a left angle bracket, then the / before the tag name, and the right angle bracket, then the content in between, which is what is displayed in your browser. So HTML tags normally come in pairs, like P and opening P and closing P. The first tag in the pair is the start tag, the second tag is the end tag. You can also call it the opening tag and closing tag, start tag, end tag. Almost the same thing. The end tag is written like the start tag, but with the / inserted before the tag name, like I have previously explained. So yeah, this is a very accurate description of what it looks like. We have the opening tag, it has the left angle bracket, the tag name, which is P in this case, and the right angle bracket. Over to the closing tag, we have the same thing, the left angle bracket, the right angle bracket, but this time there's a / just before the tag name to indicate that this is a closing tag. And in between we have the content. Then all these compartments are what make up the elements. So an element consists of the opening tag, the content, and the closing tag, right? I believe that's clear, so there's a brief explanation, okay? The main part of our elements are the opening tag. This consists of the name of the element, in this case, P, wrapped in opening and closing angle brackets. This states where the element begins or starts to take effect, right? I've explained this. So that's basically telling the browser, okay, this paragraph starts here. Then the closing tag is the same as the opening tag, except that it includes a / before the element name. This states where the elements end. Failing to include a closing tag is a common beginner error that can lead to strange results. So the closing tag is just the same as the opening tag, except that it has a / before the tag name. And what it does is that it tells the browser, okay, this is where the paragraph ends. Great. So sometimes while coding, especially if you're still learning, you might forget to, in fact it happens to everyone, not just learners, you forget to close the tag here, forget to put a / here or an angle bracket here. It's common, it happens. That's why we have text editors now. Back in the day when many of us learned, we had to use Notepad, and Notepad didn't come with most of the features that text editors come with now. Now they will help you complete the closing tag so that you don't forget to write anything. So yeah, then we have the content. This is the content of the element, right? Obviously what is displayed in your browser. The opening tag plus the closing tag plus the content equals the element. I believe this is very straightforward. So, visualization of an HTML page structure. The HTML head is the content of the head element. Unlike the content of the body element, which are displayed on the page when loaded in the browser, the head's content is not displayed on the page. Instead, the head's job is to contain metadata about the document. So like I explained earlier, whatever I put in the head is not displayed on the page, right? It's not displayed on your web browser, but what is displayed is put in the body tab, not the head. The head contains what we call metadata, and it is data information about the web page. You get, this is just information telling the web browser about the web page. So metadata is data that describes data, and HTML has an official way of adding metadata to a document. The meta element, that is what we use to add metadata to a document. There are a lot of different types of meta elements that can be included in your page's head, but we don't try to explain them here. So as you can see, even the metadata also has the same structure. So basically all HTML elements have the same structure. The opening tags, the closing tags. The opening tags consist of the left angle brackets, the tag name, and the right angle bracket. So going down, we have the structure. So the part that is in white is what you can see when you open your web page. Every other part is not seen. See, the head is not visible. So HTML versions. Since the early day of the web, there have been many versions of HTML, just like every other technology that is out there. Since the first version came out, there's been improvements. It keeps getting better. There are newer and latest versions, just like your applications you use on your phone. Every technology is like that. It keeps getting better. They keep improving on it. So the first version was HTML, then we had HTML 2.0, then we had HTML 3.2, then we have HTML 4.01, then XHTML, then HTML5. Coming out in the years 1991, 1995, 1997, 1999, 2000, 2014 respectively. So HTML5 is the newest version and the only one you should be concerned with, honestly. The rest is just knowing so that you know what you're talking about when you try and talk about it. HTML5 is the new web standard. It follows HTML4, which came out in 1997, and XHTML. Since the introduction of HTML4, a lot has happened with the web, and something needed to be done to address all the new technologies and the latest multimedia. HTML is a result of cooperation that began in 2006 between the World Wide Web Consortium W3C and the Web Hypertext Application Technology Working Group WHATWG. The basic aim of HTML5 is to provide two things. One, to improve the language, and two, to support the latest multimedia. In order to accomplish this, some ground rules were established by the W3C and WHATWG. Among them were to reduce the need for external plugins, such as Flash plugins, better handling of errors, and more markup elements to replace scripting. HTML5 should be device independent, that is understood by computers and the many devices in existence today, while also keeping it easily readable. So what this long text is saying is HTML5 is the new web standard, meaning every web page uses HTML5 now. That is the standard. That if anyone is not using it, they are wrong. So HTML is as a result of a cooperation between two groups, that's W3C and WG that began in 2006. So the basic aim of HTML is to provide two things: to improve the language, to make it better, right? That's why they created a new version. Then to support the latest multimedia. So you may not really understand what that means, but just like every other thing, think of it like this: they had to make it better. In the early days of HTML, videos were usually in formats called Flash, right? And to have those videos playing on your website, you had to use an external plugin that comes with a whole different type of complexity. So HTML5 introduced ways for you to just have your videos, have your audios on your website directly using HTML. Then it also added more elements and better handling of errors. And also another very important part is that it should be device independent, meaning all computers and phones should understand it. Think about it. Today we have things like phones. With phones we have Android, we have iOS. There are different versions, different companies. For laptops we have Linux, we have Mac OS, we have Windows, different OSs, different operating systems, different devices. We even have Vision OS now. So everyone needs to understand HTML. So before it was not so. That's why they made HTML5 so that no matter the device you are using, if you open a web page, it understands it and it can run it